probably got to be mad to race around Britain in a machine like this. But you've certainly got to be mad to do it in this, a 20-foot rigid-hull inflatable. It's the smallest and slowest entry in the race. It's backed by Heineken and called First Aid. You can see what the rival Carlsberg are getting for their money in sponsoring Ted Tolman's catamaran. It's a 46-foot missile capable of 100 miles an hour and could well win this marathon. You do wonder, though, why Heineken are involved with the small beer. That is, until you meet the two characters who'll be racing in their colours.
We're going to be at the back because we're the smallest boat. We're the lowest horsepower boat. In fact, the next lowest horsepower boat has got double what we've got. But I think our sponsors backed us because they think we're going to be able to refresh parts of the race which other boats can't.
John Calcutt and Graham Dillon have been through a lot together since they met at kindergarten. They raced from London to Mexico in a beach buggy, sailed around the world in a concrete boat they built themselves, and partnered each other in top-class powerboating. But what was their first adventure on the water?
The first boating trip we did together in an inflatable was when we were about 15. We went to France in this little 12-foot inflatable, hand compass between the knees, foggy day, and we arrived somewhere off, we thought, the French coast. We couldn't see it. We said, "Où est la belle France?" And we were right inside Cherbourg Harbour. First navigational feat ever performed.
You've really had something of a checkered career, haven't you, as well? Because at one stage, I think, competing in a race...
Just a minute.
Yeah, you spent 19 hours in the water.
We had a boat that split up us on the London Monte Carlo race. Yes, we did. And out of sight of land, we had quite a long swim across the Bay of Biscay for about 19 hours. Arrived at about midday, and all these lovely girls sunbathing on the beach. And we arrived, life jackets and helmets on, looking like nothing on earth, and staggered up the beach. Mad English on holiday.
In 1969, the dynamic duo were the youngest competitors on the only other occasion there's been a round Britain powerboat race. And yes, they did that in an inflatable as well.
We'd had a lot of experience in small rubber boats, and we liked the concept. And we thought, well, the one way to prove it is to go for something bigger and see if we could compete in a race. And we had a lot of trouble getting through our scrutineering. It was 3 days of being told, no, you're joking, you know, it's not possible to do it in a boat like this.
People didn't want to let the boat in the race, really. They didn't think we'd get past the needles. And we made it round. We came in, I think, 16th out of the 46 competitors in 1969. What's happened since then is that we've got no faster, and the boats, in fact, got smaller. And all the other boats have got faster, so there'll be a bigger gap between us and them. Yes, there will.
So what do you say to the people this time who say that you must be mad to want to go and do it in one of these?
They're right.
Carlsberg, meanwhile, are mad that they've been made one of the pre-race favourites. As Fiona discovered, they're worried about their catamaran being suited to the conditions.
I don't think we are the favorites for the event because of what you mentioned before. We do have a catamaran, and if the weather should turn real nasty, obviously one of the monohulls should have a little bit of an advantage. The second thing is that it was going to be flats calm for 10 days. I would like to not be considered the favorite. That's like the kiss of death. I've had you do that to me before. I don't want that again. Thank you.
One of Carlsberg's main rivals to win the race is Double Two Shirts. This team is hand-picked with 4 top names from the sport, including driver Richard Lawson.
Well, we're looking forward to it. We're looking forward to it. We've got a super boat, great engineering, and we think that we've got a very good chance of getting round first. That's the name of the game. Well, we're getting 75 miles an hour in the calm. I would suspect that one or two of the other competitors, the Cats particularly, are running 80s and 90s. But I don't suspect that we're going to get calm weather all the way around, so we're quite happy with what we've got.
Yes, it's obviously going to be reliability that's going to come into this more than top speed. Do you think you're really built for that with this craft?
Yes, we put a team together, Tim, myself, John, Viv, to go and win this race. So we chose a hull that was proven. It's a mono hull, it's got length, it's got weight, it's really got everything that it needs to get round Britain. We've got incredible engines. We've got 2 big, heavy, turbocharged diesel engines producing 500 horsepower each at the shaft. So we've got a very proven craft, nothing special, no gimmicks, and 4 determined guys and a backup team of 21. But if that doesn't work, nothing will.
Yes, it's now a sport that demands big money. Hopefully, tomorrow morning's start will get equally big support. At 10 o'clock, the starting gun will be fired at Southsea Castle by Prince Michael of Kent. The other main vantage points, as the fleet hammers westward, will be at Cowes, the Needles, and Hurst Castle. First Aid are raising funds for the RNLI, so do give them a special cheer. They'll be the ones lost in a cloud of spray behind the big boats, but they certainly don't want you to worry about them.
It's probably one of the safest boats in the race. This boat won't sink on the Round Britain race, and there will be other boats that will sink on the Round Britain race, definitely. There were last time, there will be this time.
But it's not going to be too comfortable.
It's not comfortable, no. It's not. And we were 15 years younger last time.
So your fingers crossed for fine weather, are you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can I have a word with the head skipper the day before the start?
The competitors will be covering something like 1,500 nautical miles, but in stages. It'll take them 12 days in all.
Correct.
And the vessels are actually classified.
Yes, they're classified. We've got petrol boats and we've got diesel boats, and we've got at the top end of the scale 2,000 horsepower all the way down to about 150 horsepower. So to make it a little fairer, they're all divided up into classes depending on whether they're Class 1, Class 2, Class 3, or various categories in cruisers.
And from how far afield do the competitors come?
Well, we've got entries from the United States, several from Italy, Norway, Sweden, and obviously the United Kingdom.
And what sort of hazards will they face when they get out there?
Well, the way the wind's blowing right now, I think the biggest hazard will probably be the sea. But I believe the wind is going to die down over the next 12 hours, and I think they're probably, there's a lot of debris out in the ocean and lobster pots, and there's quite a lot of navigation involved and some rather nasty rocks.
And they'll be going at high speed too?
Yes, we've got speeds of 100 miles an hour under ideal conditions for the big boats, and the little boats running no more than 35 miles an hour, so tremendous differential.
And what sort of prize money can they pick up?
I think we've got more prize money than any other offshore races that has ever been held. I've got about £80,000 to give away at the end, which I think is pretty good.
So what about safety precautions?
Safety, we've, thank God, got a bloody good record, and we want to maintain that, and therefore we've got a very, very comprehensive safety and rescue program right round the whole coast. 240 lifeboat stations will be looking after us, plus the Coast Guard, plus 2 fixed-wing aircraft, plus a helicopter. One way or another, I mean, we don't expect to lose anybody.
I've just been out in the Solent doing over 70 miles an hour in White of Echo. She's one of the Class 1 powerboats in this race. And speaking as a sailing man, I can tell you it's really rather fun. In the dock here, we've got a big range of boats that are really quite exciting. Over there's Tramontana 3. She's designed by Don Sheds, built by Suitors in Cowes, the direct descendant of the Tramontana, the boat that won the 62 Cowes, Torquay Cowes powerboat race. Now, I'm standing on a Gazelle 27. She's running in the cabin class. Here is a Sunseeker 34, and outside me, a Fletcher Zingaro. Now, these boats are, if you like, the waterborne equivalent of the souped-up Ford Escort. They're production boats. You can see them in your ordinary marina, and they'll go around Britain at between 30 and 45 knots. But when it comes to really making the hairs on the back of your neck stand on end, there's really nothing to beat the heavy metal in Class 1. When you're in one of those and they start the engines up and the throttle man pushes the levers forward, you know all about it. It's great fun.
Here in a pool boatyard, the finishing touches are being made to the Legend, preparing this 40-foot monohull powerboat for the marathon 10-leg race. What's unique about the Legend are her engines, 2 British Jaguar V12s, marking Jaguar's first move into marine engines. The team's led by Jerv Brazier.
Have you used them for a race yet?
Yes, we've used the basic engine 4 times this year, and we've won 3 times, including the long London-Calais-London race 2 weeks ago. But since then, the very latest specification has enabled us to change turbochargers and a few other little bits and pieces.
You're generally pretty happy with them?
Very happy indeed, yes. They're really starting to go well now.
Travelling at speeds of up to 90 miles an hour on what's essentially a constantly moving road means that the job of driving the boat must be shared out. The second member of the Jaguar team is throttleman Jim Brooker. The final place in the boat goes to the navigator, and for this race 2 men are sharing the job. One is Tony Howe, who spends most of his time being a family doctor. The other is former world champion in the smaller Class 2 boats, David Hagan.
The navigator's prime job is to point the boat in the right direction. You find when you're in practice, when you're racing along at sort of 80 and 85 miles an hour and the sea is moving a bit, that the driver is more inclined to concentrate on the first few waves just in front of the boat. He doesn't probably see more than about 50 yards. The throttle man is also much more concerned with the state of the engines, the throttling, the attitude of the boat, the trim and the tabs and so on. And in fact, it can be rather lonely because you're the only guy actually watching where you're going.
And this is the
Sure.
first stage. How difficult is that?
Well, the first stage is from Portsmouth westwards to Falmouth in Cornwall. The advantage for me is that the whole of this area is an area known to me pretty well. As you know, we're based in Poole at the moment at the offshore powerboat compound. So the whole of the waters really between Portsmouth and round Start Point are known to me terribly well. We do a lot of racing in this area.
And on the first day of the Round Britain race, this experience did lead David to take a decision, as the results will show. The pre-race favourite is White Iveco, driven by Fabio Buzzi from Italy. But another British competitor everyone respects is Ted Tolman. He has 4 Sabre diesel engines powering his 46-foot catamaran. Diesel versus petrol is one of the crucial choices.
Well, one of your main competitors, the Jaguar, the Legend, that's a petrol engine. Do you think they've made a mistake there?
No, I don't think they've made a mistake. If they run properly, this is the point. None of us know who's going to lead the pack. We don't know how fast we're going to run. There are other petrol boats in the race. You've got the world champion here, Renato Della Valle, with Lamborghini engines. I just think by the time we get to Inverness, the sort of punishment that the engines will have taken, the diesels will be the right choice.
But Jim Brooker knows his engines, and the Jaguar petrol turbocharged V12s have been carefully chosen for speed and power.
But do you think your engine will be the difference between winning and losing?
Well, we hope so. The reliability in it over the last year has really gone in leaps and bounds. In fact, one of the engines we've just taken out had done 20 hours, but we'd never seen that before on a race engine. So we're really keeping our fingers crossed that these 4 we got actually stayed the distance.
What do you think of your chances of winning?
I think they're very good, otherwise they wouldn't be competing.
Well, I think one of the great Americans once went on record as saying, you don't have to win, but it sure as hell beats coming second. And as far as I'm concerned, we're going to win.
So, David Hagan, what does it cost in practical terms to put a boat like this into a race like this?
Well, it's a very expensive business. If you look at a piece of kit like this and you view the entry in this Round Britain race, you can easily think in terms of £500,000 in sheer natural costs involved in this race. That's probably very difficult for anybody to naturally perceive. But to break that down, if you look at the Legend during this season, each of these engines is a specially developed turbocharged V12 Jaguar engine. They'll probably stand in at £50,000 each at least, and at the start of this race we will have 6 engines available to us. So you've got £300,000 of engines alone. The engine is only a fraction of the equipment in the boat, okay? You've then got to transfer the power into the water. So you go down the drive line, there are gearboxes, 6 of those, something like £3,000 each, onto the whole of the transom assembly, which contains the propeller and the stern drive and the tailstock and all this sort of thing. They probably stand in around about £15,000 each unit, and we'll probably use 6 of those. So it's another £100,000 of those alone. And the hull itself, with its fuel systems and everything else, very sophisticated. It's probably £250,000 worth. So you're currently sitting on £750,000 worth of machinery alone. Then when you get to the cost of the race itself, well, we're going a long way. We're going 1,750 nautical miles. The fuel consumption is about 62 gallons per hour per engine, and we run on high-octane aviation spirit. That's £3 a gallon. And if you compute that up, well, I don't know, it's something like £12,000 or £15,000 worth of fuel alone.
I hope it's worth it at the end of it.
Well, sure. We must stand a very good chance of winning, although, to be truthful, it's rather like entering the Safari Rally in a Formula One motor car. But nonetheless, we're very optimistic, and I think we'll be in the frame.
Well, two men who caught the public's imagination back in 1969 by competing in an inflatable lifeboat, and coming 14th into the bargain were John Colcott and Graham Dillon here, although you spent most of the race underwater, I think, didn't you?
We did get rather wet, yeah.
We can tell you more about the subterranean contours of the British Isles than most of Her Majesty's submarines. How about that?
It was, in fact, the first inflatable lifeboat of its kind.
Yeah, it was. It's first ever one. It was the prototype for the Atlantic 21, built when we were at a place called Atlantic College, and that still gives the name to the inshore rescue boat today, which the RNLI use, called the Atlantic 21.
Now, you're trying it this time again in an inflatable boat, although this is not the same one. I guess.
A smaller one, even. Horrifying, isn't it? Yeah. This is actually smaller, this boat. I don't know, we'll give that a go, too.
And what do you think the chances are?
What do you think, mate?
Well, if the weather's kind to us, we'll do all right. If it's not, we'll have a hard ride, but we'll still get around.
Hang on tight. Open up the throttles and hang on tight.
Well, Keith Schellenberg has gained something of a reputation for himself as being a bit of an eccentric adventurer. He owns an island off the north coast of Scotland. He enjoys racing old Bentleys. He did, in fact, take part in the last powerboat race in 1969, and I'd have thought that you had enough of it then. What's the big attraction?
I think long-distance events always have something special. You want something that's competitive, but also is an adventure at the same time.
What sort of a chance do you think you've got?
So we got a fast, reasonably priced, quick little boat, which can't cope with heavy seas. And we're only entering in the lowest category, class 3.
I understand you had a bit of trouble getting over from Hamble this morning. That's only 4 miles away. Do you think you'll make it all the way around the coast?
No, I think I probably won't make it round the coast. We may well decide it's too much because we haven't much freeboard, and we'll pull in some quiet cove and try again the next day.
Competitor who took part in the 1969 Round Britain powerboat race and who had to withdraw because of family illness, but who's determined to make a much better showing this time is Lady Aaron. You got a bit of a start on the others because you know what to expect.
Well, I only know what to expect as far as Inverness, because I only got far,
that was as far as you got
last time, yeah.
But a fairly horrendous trip in some respects, I would imagine.
Well, it looks as if it might be this time, because the weather's going to be very rough, and the minute the weather's rough anywhere, it is rather awful.
Now, you have taken the unprecedented step of reclassifying your boat. You've turned it into a Class 1 vessel, which means you're up against some pretty stiff opposition, some very elaborate boats with highly tuned outboard motors. Doesn't that worry you?
Not really, because I'm hoping they're so highly tuned they'll all blow up and we'll chug through.
That's what you're counting on, is it?
That's what I'm counting on.
They tell me you're a very fast lady.
Well, I'm very fast on the water. I like to go as fast as I can. I like to go fast anywhere.
Because you're the first lady to have hit 100 miles an hour over water on a powerboat on Windermere in 1980, isn't that true?
Yes.
Well, what's the curious compulsion of speed?
I don't know. I was just born with it. You know, I have it the whole time. I drive fast, I ride horses fast. Everything has to go flat out.
Because, you know, during the race, of course, you have a rather important birthday.
Yes, I shall be 66 when we reach Oban, if we reach Oban. I don't know where we'll spend it otherwise.
So you're planning to celebrate actually in the middle of the race?
Yes.
66?
66.
You see, a lot of people might feel it's a good time to, say, take up golf or croquet.
Well, you must do what you feel like. I still feel like racing and love every moment of it. And so one might as well go on until nature tells one to stop.
What about your grandchildren? Do they like speed?
They love it. The oldest one loves it too. She's always saying, faster, Granny, faster.
Now, you said quite recently that this Round Britain powerboat race is going to be the final step in your career, and after that you're going to slow down and become respectable. Are you still holding to that?
No, my next year's boat, I think, should be capable of about 120. And that's the truth. We've got one ordered. So I don't think slowing down, not next year anyhow, maybe the year after.
Steve Piles, how do you navigate a powerboat round Britain?
We've planned the complete route around because obviously in a boat of this size and at the speeds we travel, you can't carry charts and things, so we need small charts like these in front of us which are concise and precise.
And what are these figures here?
Those are mileages because we we're tending to run on a distance and time system, so that we know that we left a point at such and such a time. We've travelled on a certain bearing for half an hour. We should therefore be somewhere else.
You mean you're not using any electronic aids or hand-bearing compass to fix your position as you go along, as a yacht navigator would do? You've got it all worked out beforehand?
It's all worked out, and we're using a very good central compass. Just compass and time. That a lot of electronic gadgetry. It's something else to worry about, something else to go wrong.
One boat that seems certain to attract the full glare of the publicity spotlight is Agfa Bluebird, a 25-foot Class 3D boat driven by Mike Standring with Gina Campbell, daughter of the late Sir Donald Campbell, as his crew. It's their first season of powerboat racing, so had Gina done much in the way of pre-planning for the big race?
No, to be quite honest, we haven't had the time. We've had a very heavy racing schedule already this year. We've been racing very nearly every weekend since May the 5th. So we know the South Coast pretty well, but beyond sort of Falmouth, it's all very new ground for us. It does put tremendous pressure upon me that I know I have a tremendously well-respected and well-known family name to uphold, and in no way can I let the side down.
Of course, you've only got to get round to win your class, because you're the only one in your class, aren't you?
Well, this is what we were led to believe, but just looking through the pre-programme in powerboat and water skiing, I believe there are a couple of other 3D boats, but I'm not sure, in fact, they technically qualify, so you could be right, we could be the only boat in our class.
All right, well, let me put that another way. Can you get round?
Oh, God willing, yes, we can. I mean, of course we can. If the rubber boat can get round, and he's proved he can, because he did it in '69, I'm damn sure we can.
A wealthy yacht owner once described his sport as like standing under a shower tearing up pound notes. Well, powerboat racers surely use fivers. The trick is to find a rich sponsor, and then at least they're someone else's. Stainless steel propellers, they're £1,000 each. Consider that the largest boats here, the 90-mile-an-hour craft that run on aviation fuel, do 1 mile to the gallon. By the time they've circuited Britain clockwise, they'll have covered at least 1,472 miles. The race is split into 10 stages over 12 days. But that speed, dearly bought, means that in actual racing time, the leaders could be back at Portsmouth in just over 20 hours. 31 teams have entered, including Americans, Italians, Norwegians. Before the start at 10 o'clock Saturday morning, each craft will have been thoroughly inspected by the race scrutineers. They're to see that safety equipment is sufficient and that the boats conform to their class specification.
You must have the 4x4. It's a small one, you don't have to have. Right.
When they're satisfied, it's up to the driver and his crew.
So during the race, there are 4 of you aboard. What do each of you do?
Well, the driver obviously drives, by which he steers. The throttle man is probably one of the more important people on board. He works the throttles, which obviously keep the boat going at the fastest possible speed. He works the tabs, which get the boat level, and the outdrives. Now, that's a fine balance. And he monitors the engine systems. The driver has probably the easiest job. He's got to hang onto the wheel for the grim deck, and he goes in the direction that the navigator, who's the guy behind him, tells him. And the navigator is working his charts and working his courses, and he's keeping you in the straightest line to get as quickly as possible to where you're trying to get to. And last but not least, you have the co-driver. Tim Hill and I share the driving. He rests and works the radio, and we take turns halfway through, because it's fairly hard work holding on to all the 70 miles an hour. It's very strong strain, takes a large strain on the arms.
Ted Tolman in the 46-foot Carlsberg catamaran is one of the pre-race favourites. Is he happy about the conditions?
No. There's a short answer to that. I think it's going to be pretty rough. We're going to be running inside the bays. I think the whole idea of this leg is purely to get to Falmouth.
Italian world champion Renato Della Valle insists that he's looking forward to the race, whatever the weather. But not so Lady Arran, who's a veteran of the only previous Round Britain race in 1969.
Well, I'm feeling much older, and as the weather's very rough, I'm feeling very frightened this morning.
And pre-race nerves have also got to Gina Campbell, the daughter of water speed pioneer Donald Campbell. You, like most other people around here, pretty apprehensive.
Certainly, yes. I think, as you say, people are trying not to let on that they're a bit nervous, but they surely are, and I would be the first to admit that I am treating it with some trepidation.
Long way to go in those weather conditions. Yes, it is.
Well, we're just going to take it easy and get there. You know, we've got 12 hours to do it, or 11 hours to do it in, and if we need 11 hours, we'll take 11 hours.
Make sure the lights are on in the harbour in Falmouth.
The start is delayed by an hour in the hope that the wind drops. But once the gun goes, it's just the competitors against the elements. Falmouth is 173 bone-shaking miles away.
And now here at South Sea Castle, the competitors are lining up for the off. Any second now, and they'll be on their way.
Everybody gets across the start line. The American boat John Philip Tuber blows a gearbox, whilst Tim Cotton from Poole in RGS retires with a very sick engine. The first leg is hard on the lady competitors. Gina Campbell in Agfa Bluebird has to retire to Weymouth with serious engine problems. She hopes to rejoin the race for the last few legs. And Sue Griffiths, a crew member aboard Everest Forever, injures her back. Not surprising in these conditions in Lyme Bay. It's hardly a honeymoon, but Peter and Jan Armstrong, the husband and wife team from Brighton, are coping well with the 6-foot waves. And Thursday, the half-pint entry, are showing that they can compete with the big boys. Most of the time.
3 hours and 46 minutes after the start, the winner reaches Falmouth. The first two boats are Italian. White Iveco, driven by Fabio Buzzi, followed a minute later by Renato Della Valle in Ego Lamborghini. Colin Gervais Brazier in the Legend is third, with Ted Tolman, the early leader, back in fourth. Both are half an hour behind the Italian.
It was horrible in places, absolutely horrible. We decided to bash straight across, and some of the other boats decided to go on the inshore routes and gained a little bit that way, but no, we're quite happy.
I suppose I was a little surprised when we went out past the Needles. I decided to use the direct route, and over my shoulder I could see that most of our competitors had chosen to use the inshore route. And after the first few hundred yards of the out by the South Shingles, I was beginning to think that I might have made the wrong decision.
I thought you might have a few nasty moments there.
That's right, but I was quite happy because when we got to the other side near St Albans Head, we were able to determine that we were in the lead at that stage.
But the crucial question was, how did the engine stand up to the bad weather and relatively slow racing?
But we're doing some checking now. We may have a problem, but nothing that won't be put right by the morning.
Got to give the backup crew something to do, you see.
They've got to be kept working, otherwise, you know, they get a bit sloppy.
Ted Tolman was out of luck. He came in fourth, but taking in water from the gash in the hull made by heavy seas. But worse was to come. On the second day, the catamaran was submerged by a huge wave and sank in 600 feet of water.
The second leg produces an action replay. 22 boats come to the line, but once again the Italians leave the British contingent in their wake. Oban's big catamaran is unsuited to the heavy conditions. It's swamped by a huge wave and sinks. The four-man team are rescued by helicopter, leaving £250,000 worth of power boats at the bottom of the Bristol Channel. At the finish in Fishguard, it's again Buzzi first and Della Valle second. The Italians look as if they've merely been for a day's cruise on Lake Como, whilst the Carlsberg team are being rushed to hospital.
We took a big, enormous wave over the front of the boat. It went straight into the engine compartments. We couldn't get the water out, and as fast as we were getting it out, within 3 minutes the boat was up on its end, and we all went everywhere.
The boat's completely gone.
The boat's gone. It went in 3 minutes. Smitty nearly got caught inside. He was trying to get the flares out. I slid down, and the knife raft went one way and I went the other. So anyway, that was it. One of those things, I'm afraid. Live to fight another day.
Another British casualty is Sue Griffith. Her back injury has got worse, and she'll take no further part in the race.
By the start of the third leg, 4 boats are out of the race altogether, and another 11 are not racing, but hope to rejoin the event further around the coast. The bad weather early on and the sheer distance involved have really taken their toll. The Italians continue to dominate. First to reach Douglas on the Isle of Man is once again White Iveco, and Ego Lamborghini is second for the third time. They're now both more than 2 hours ahead of the fastest British entry, Double Two Shirts, who's third overall, but first in Class 2.
Then at last there's a British success. The fourth leg is the 62 miles around the Isle of Man, and Guernsey businessman Colin Gervais Brazier feels right at home. In ideal conditions, Jerv pushes the legend to an incredible average speed of 79 miles an hour. He beats Buzzi by 2.5 minutes and knocks 20 minutes off the record. The Jaguar powered boat is back in Douglas in just 54 minutes and 9 seconds. Jerv and his navigator David Hagan are delighted.
Yes, good conditions today, and the Jags were really purring along nicely. We were very pleased with the speed and the reliability.
79 miles an hour is the average?
Yes, that's pretty good. If we hadn't stopped for 2 minutes, it would have been over 80.
An interesting part of the leg was coming through the Carp of Man, Tony. That's quite a dangerous little spot, wasn't it?
We approached it expecting it, as I say, to be wobbly, but we came through at over 78 miles an hour. The gap itself is less than 100 yards wide, and in fact probably nearer 50, and so we had to set it up very carefully first of all.
Great navigation by the Legends crew, but Lady Arran may not be driving in a straight line on the fifth leg. It's her 66th birthday, and even before the race starts, there's champagne flowing for her and the Laura Lucy's crew.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Here's to old age.
Here's to old age.
Lady Arran lives on this beautiful stretch of Scottish coastline. She finishes 10th on her birthday, but again it's the Legend coming home first in leg 5, the 166 miles from Douglas to Oban. As the race enters its second week, the message for the Italians is clear. Colin Gervais Brazier and Jaguar the Legend are ready to pounce.
They can't have all luck. No, it's you need a bit of luck to win this race. We've proved to them now that we're faster than them in the rough and in the smooth, so you know, they're under pressure in that respect. They can't ease up.
By the time the fleet reached Oban at the end of the fifth leg, Two Italian entries had established an impressive lead. White Iveco, driven by Fabio Buzzi, was first, and world champion Renato Della Valle in Ego Lamborghini was second. Colin Gervais Brazier in Jaguar the Legend won the fourth and fifth legs, and despite the bad start he made to the event, the Guernsey businessman was still a threat to the Italians. In Class 2, Double Two Shirts had relished the rough conditions. Consistent results had put this British entry in third place, just 2 hours behind the leaders. One of the smallest boats, OCL Suzuki, had to retire on the leg to Oban. That was the first blemish on a fine performance that had put her in 7th place overall. And what about the pint-sized entry, First Aid? Well, the smallest boat in the race completed all of the first 5 legs. So John Calcott and Graham Dillon were in a creditable 13th place when the fleet took to the Caledonian Canal for a non-racing leg to Inverness. Even these powerful high-tech racing machines had to wait their turn for the locks. But once away from the crowds, there was a chance to enjoy a pleasant cruise. While at Inverness, there were 1,000 maintenance jobs to do before leg 6.
Ready or not, leg 6 will take them from Inverness to Dundee, 185 miles, the longest leg in the race. The half-time interval is over. This is the crucial second half of the marathon. The one thing they're all praying for is kinder weather after the rough trip up the west coast. Today the conditions are good for the start, a flat calm. And the northwesterly that picks up gives them a following sea later in the leg. After just under 3 hours, there's a photo finish involving Jaguar the Legend and White Iveco. The British boat is first by just 9 seconds. Ego Lamborghini is only a further 16 seconds behind in third spot. Colin Gervais Brazier has won his third successive leg.
We really won it on navigation in the end. Tony took it tighter than the others. And Renato's blown engine literally yards from the end, yes.
But only seconds splitting the three of you.
Yeah, tremendous. That's all right. As long as you come first, it doesn't matter, does it?
An hour behind those 3 Class 1 machines comes Brute. Peter and Jan Armstrong, the husband and wife team from Brighton, have really been splashing it on. They finished 4th, are now 3rd overall, and 1st in Class 2. But there's more trouble for the Tolman family. Ted Tolman's huge catamaran sank on leg 2. His Grand Prix car crashed in practice at Brands Hatch, and now Ted's twins, Gary and Michael, have to be airlifted from their catamaran. The rear of one hull has broken off, and at one stage the twins thought the boat must sink. The craft was kept afloat only by a helicopter's line. And Lady Arran in the cruiser Laura Lucy is another who hasn't enjoyed leg 6.
I don't believe the weather forecasters anymore. They said 3 to 4, but 5 to 6, 6 to 7.
The Dorset-based cruiser Minster Heatwave finishes 6th, even with a cracked hull. They're 4th overall, despite the restrictions placed on this sort of boat.
Yes, well, the production cruiser class means just that. These are production boats straight out of the showroom with production engines to which no modifications are required. They have to race with a complete complement of cruising equipment, which includes sink, hot running water, 2-burner stove, and all the knives and forks, and the cocktail cabinet. You see, these boats, which are built for cruising, have an enormous amount of accommodation inside them, and all this beautiful woodwork and cabinet equipment, which tends to disintegrate at high speeds, which is a big problem. But anyway, we all seem to keep our boats going, and I'm very pleased to say
that our boat is lying fourth at the moment, which can't be bad behind all the big stuff that we've just seen coming in.
By the start of leg 7, from Dundee to Whitby, the wear and tear on the competitors is beginning to show. They're well strapped to combat the G-forces that can be greater than those experienced on the space shuttle. Gina Campbell, however, has a self-inflicted injury. She sprained her ankle getting out of her boat. But Donald Campbell's daughter is made of stern stuff, and she'll race on. The constant pounding seems to be getting to the dynamic duo in first aid. Has Graham Dillon gone soft? He's got a backrest. Halfway through leg 7, Jaguar the Legend limps into Berwick. With her goes any genuine British hopes of winning the event. She's blown one 50,000-pound engine and badly damaged another. Gina Campbell produces her best results so far on this leg. She's 8th, despite her heavily strapped ankle. Third place goes to the Isle of Egg ferry, a Class 3 boat. The Laird of Egg is the driver. He used to live in Whitby, and his expert local knowledge helps beat boats with twice the power. But the first two to reach the Yorkshire fishing port are the inevitable Italians. First, White Iveco, second, Ego Lamborghini.
Realistically, the battle is now for class honours behind those Italians. The next leg, Whitby to Great Yarmouth, is 150 miles, providing an extra attraction for the East Coast holidaymakers. The Tolman twins have been working frantically to get their boat back into action since that fright on leg 6. With help from their father's crew, they work through the night in Scotland to repair the damage. Gary and Michael are at least back in the fray, but the race conditions certainly haven't favoured the catamarans. One has sunk, one dropped out with engine trouble, and the remaining 2 have hit problems. Calm conditions spark a great spectacle as the 22 boats left in the race hammer off towards their most easterly destination, Great Yarmouth.
2 hours and 42 minutes after the gun goes in Whitby, White Iveco crosses the finish line. That's an average speed of around 60 miles an hour. Following faithfully in his wake is Ego Lamborghini. The Italian pair now have a massive 9-hour lead on the Armstrongs in Brute, who are third on this leg.
The 9th leg from Great Yarmouth to Ramsgate produces rough conditions, especially in the Thames estuary. Surprisingly, this affects White Iveco as much as any. His average speed is reduced to 50 knots, but that's enough to win Fabio Buzzi his 6th leg. Brute finishes second, just 17 minutes behind the race leader, and OCL Suzuki, a Class 3 boat, is third, only another 4 minutes later.
Conditions were decidedly bumpy as race leader Fabio Buzzi in White Iveco crossed the line at Ramsgate Harbour. With a 2-hour lead over his nearest rival, he seemed certain to win the £20,000 first prize. But his troubles were only just beginning. And Brighton's Peter Armstrong in Brute seemed to be in buoyant form as he crossed the line in 2nd place on the 9th leg, but he too was to hit problems. White Iveco is one of the heaviest, and at £500,000, one of the most expensive boats in the race. It was designed by its Italian skipper and has been one of the favourites to win the race. But as it was being pulled out of the water for maintenance before tomorrow's final leg to Portsmouth, it was dropped onto a quayside bollard and badly damaged. Italian confusion reigned.
No, lasciami fare. Exactly what happened? Be patient. The crane driver was not very good, so he should know where the center of gravity is. When they pick up the boat, the wheels come like this of the crane, so it's a mistake.
Are you out of the race?
No.
You're going to repair tonight?
Yes, no problem.
Brute became tangled in the lines of a local fishing boat and had to be towed back to its berth. But Armstrong and his crew, wife Jan and Steve Baker from Tiddingbourne, soon got over the setback.
Well, we just came in there and there's some fishing lines and we had to jack the engines out to let go of the lines, and it just by jacking them out, it just popped one of the steering rams, unfortunately, so we've got to put a new ram on.
Does that put you out of the race?
No way.
So you've got to put it right and be on the starting line for tomorrow?
That's right, we'll be there.
That looked very dramatic crossing the line. Was it rough out there?
You ask him.
Steve, you built the boat, you should know.
That's right, yeah.
Was it rough?
Yeah, it's quite rough today, but very enjoyable. She's running about 40 knots with no problem.
Meanwhile, there are more problems for the bigger British boats. Jaguar the Legend has to retire again, and Double Two Shirts has run out of engines. They've blown 4 on this event. And so to the last leg, Ramsgate to Portsmouth. Only another 118 miles to go. 22 of the original 30 boats are left in. 10 of them have completed every leg, including first aid, which has been averaging around 24 knots. That's only half the speed of White Iveco, but then first aid has got only 1/16 of the Italian boat's horsepower. Colin Gervais Brazier is the early leader on the last leg, but a turbocharger problem costs him dear. The repairs lose him 10 vital minutes. Gerv dearly wants to be first into Portsmouth, but that honour now goes to Fabio Buzzi. Portsmouth has staged some famous maritime homecomings over the years. This time the crowds have gathered at Southsea Castle to see an Italian take the honours. White Iveco's diesel engines have powered Buzzi around the British coast in just 27.5 hours of racing. Now, after nearly 1,500 miles, the Italian job is complete. After winning 7 of the 10 legs, the marine designer from Como is a deserved winner of the £20,000 first prize.
No problems at all, except the green in Ramsgate. No problems at all. We never changed the engines. We have the best engine for sure. And we had a very beautiful pleasure boat because this is serial production Cigala and Bertinetti boat. So it's not a real racing boat.
Right, well, congratulations. We'll let you celebrate now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jaguar the Legend finishes 2nd and 10th overall. With 3 wins and 3 retirements, she really has blown hot and cold. The first British boat in the event is in fact Brute, a tremendous achievement for Peter and Jan Armstrong. The couple from Brighton and the boat's designer, Steve Baker, have had an excellent last 5 legs, never out of the top 4.
What's it done for your marriage, going around Britain in a boat? Oh, brilliant. Oh, well done anyway. Thank you.
First British boat, that's the most important thing.
That's it, marvellous. Well done, Peter.
First outboard,
Must
first
be.
class 2, first lady, got it, in the bag.
Well done. Lady Aaron completes 9 legs and finishes 9th overall. But she's been carrying some extra fuel, a flask of scotch.
Well, the navigator doesn't like it, thank heavens.
All 22 starters complete the last leg. The winners in the other major classes include Disprin the Fast One, driven by Colin Stewart from Buckinghamshire. He's 4th overall and wins the sports cruiser class. Minster Heatwave is 5th and wins the standard cruiser class. And Peter Ash, the flying farmer from Exeter, is 1st in class 3 with OCL Suzuki. He's an impressive 6th overall. The award for the best T-shirt goes to the first aid team, who couldn't resist a dig at Ted Tolman and his sponsor. How did John and Graham feel after a great display that put them in 12th place overall?
Glad to be back.
Was it as high as you expected?
It's a long way. It's almost 2,000 miles in a rubber boat is a long way to go. But if you look at the speeds, we've completed the course at approximately 85% of our potential speed, which is a lot higher percentage than any other boat in the race. So, although it's the smallest boat, I hope it proves
And what
something.
about you? How do you two feel?
How do you feel?
You learnt how to swim, 2nd leg?
We had a little swim off Land's End. Can't recommend the bathing. Down the overfalls like this, boat pivoted out, spun round and we shot out the back.
If someone gave you another race tomorrow, would you do it?
Not in a boat. What did you have in mind?
And Gina Campbell isn't too keen on going around again just yet. She's had a miserable race overall, is last today after fouling her propeller, and she's still remembering Land's End.
We were climbing up waves, not exaggerating, 30 foot high, and it was like climbing up the side of a house and you're leaping off its chimney pots into a big bottomless pit. Very, very anxious moments for us.
In fact, the weather was the only thing that wasn't quite right on this event. The organisation was praised by all of the competitors. So, when's the next Round Britain race?
I don't know. I certainly won't be next year. I think it might be in 2 or 3 years' time. I don't think the competitors want to race immediately the following year. I don't think they can necessarily afford it, or the time, or the money. But I'm sure there will be another one.